and ideas, go to Champaign Moms and check out all the fun things you can do with your kids in the spring. I am honored to get to introduce Dean Elliott today as our speaker for Women in Tech. Dean Elliott was named in July 2024, began her career as dean here at Gies College of Business, leading one of the top colleges of business in the US, a very pioneering and innovative program that has been technology forward, so appropriate today. She is the Josef and Margot Lakonishok Professor in Business, entrepreneurs themselves, I might add, starting a business here in Champaign that was very successful. She became the 11th dean in the 100-year history of the Gies College of Business, and the first woman ever to hold the position. She's been leading a new compelling strategic vision to help build on their brand and identity. But she is not a new person to the University of Illinois. She has had a long and accomplished career here at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Prior to her current role, she served as the Executive Associate Dean of Academic Programs, and she was the EY Professor in the Gies College of Business, responsible for strategic oversight of the Gies portfolio, including academic and non-degree programs. She worked on a lot of online education, so appropriate that she now leads one of the most robust programs of its type in the country. And she was also head of the Department of Accounting, our most prestigious, I'd say, in the College of Business, and longtime source of the best accountants in the country. She also has had many of her other accomplishments in research as a cited professor here at the university, and her work has been in popular press, including Fortune and the Wall Street Journal. She also serves on the board of directors and the audit committee for Gordon Food Service. They have a local retail outlet here. And you just heard she's also a mom and somehow still has time to be a baseball announcer and attend her kids' games. So I hope we'll get some words of wisdom of her leadership and also how she balances all these amazing accomplishments. Thank you, Dean Elliott, for being with us today.
Hi everyone, again, thank you for having me today. I saw the picture, I'm like, I really love 2018 Brooke. Like, my hair is not gray, I look much younger because I actually am. If we can just stick with that picture. It made me think because there's been a trend with ChatGPT to create your own action figure. And so my daughter and I were on our way to Minneapolis for soccer this past weekend, and I looked at the prompt and it said upload a picture. Well, she just put in ChatGPT, create an action figure of Brooke Elliott, the dean of the Gies College of Business, and then she asked for a description on myself, and it came back and said that I was an energetic, well-dressed, silver-haired, middle-aged woman. Oh man, you're killing me! So she said I needed to get my hair dyed more often. That's what my daughter said. Anyway, I really appreciated the 2018 picture. So just a little bit, I'll just maybe share a little bit about my background here at the University of Illinois, kind of my approach to leadership, and then, to Laura's point, like how I balance it, and I'll tell you that I don't use the word balance because there is no such thing in terms of just all the responsibilities that I have as a working mom and a professional. And then I would love to share just a little bit about, how we think about innovation in the Gies College of Business. And of course, I'm happy to answer questions at any time. If you have a really pressing question, as I'm talking, just raise your hand. Like, this can be very informal. So I've spent my entire academic career at the University of Illinois, 22 years. Laura went through the different positions that I've held. I feel like I have been a strong woman leader on this campus and in our college. So in accountancy, I was only the second full professor in accountancy. The first was actually in 1958, which is crazy, and her name was Dorothy Litherland. And so I often thought back about what it must have been like for her, because she was one of the only women on faculty. She typically taught classes that were full of men. She used to publish only under her initials because she knew that the publication process would be biased against her if she used her actual name. And so it really is a little bit unbelievable, honestly, that it took from 1958 and then I was promoted to full professor in 2016. That's a huge gap. And we do have one of the best accounting programs anywhere in the world, and a lot of times people say, well, you must be so proud to, I was the first endowed full professor ever in the Department of Accountancy that was a woman. I was the first head or chair of any department that was a woman in the Gies College of Business, and then the first woman dean. And I am extremely proud, but I'm also like extremely disappointed that it took that long, right? I'm like, this is ridiculous, because we have had amazing leaders. And so, I do, on the one hand, I am proud to be in this position because, I believe my path has provided me an opportunity to really demonstrate not just to other women in our college from a faculty perspective, but also across campus, just that, women can play these roles and do extremely well. I've tried to really model within our college for other women faculty, and then also, our women students about what it takes and that they can succeed in whatever path they choose, and they can also have a family, right? They can get married, they can have kids, they can enjoy activities outside of work. I mean, every time, I often walk into the BIF atrium and the students will come up and talk to me, but our like woman students are so proud to have a woman dean, and it catches me off guard, but like I see their face and they're smiling and they're just thrilled, and they tell me how impactful it is. And so like I love to be able just to have that opportunity, and that's probably one of the greatest things and why I'm so honored and grateful to be in this position. One thing I did want to share, and I often share whenever I'm like in these type of talks, I think like, did I lead in the way that I really should have led as a woman during my entire time here at the University of Illinois? And was I always a great role model for women? And, I would say my answer is no, which maybe is a little bit surprising, and maybe, if I think back about earlier versions of myself, maybe I'm a little bit disappointed in how I led. I think whenever, academia and particularly tech, but accounting as well, tends to be predominantly male-dominated. And so the way that I really felt I was successful, honestly, early on in my academic career is I just acted like a man. And so, I was often the only woman in the room. I was the only woman that was part of our departmental advisory committee. And so it was just easier to assimilate from that perspective. And I'm a type A personality. I'm extremely competitive. I have the mouth of a sailor, so I fit in relatively well. But what I recognized, probably right after I was tenured is I was not helping other women. I was not demonstrating to other women that they could be their authentic self and also be a leader. And I started to recognize that over time. It really changed how I behaved. I didn't change who I was from a competitive perspective, but I also didn't mind letting, for example, the empathetic side of me show through. And when I describe myself now as a leader, I think I'm a bold, transparent, and empathetic leader. And I would say the empathetic side of me, I didn't let come through whenever, I was in different positions early on in my career. And so that's one story that I always share just in terms of I think I could have done things differently, and I think really showing up as your authentic self is extremely important and probably has a bigger impact on others than what you would ever know. And so that's something we talk about often in the Gies College of Business is just creating an environment, creating a community where everyone can show up as their authentic selves, because we're all better for it if we create that type of environment. So that's something that we really talk about. In terms of just if I think about my career and how it's been, impacted, or how I really thought about innovation and technology, I was head of accountancy, and so Laura mentioned, accountancy is one of the most well-known programs and really in the nation and even in the world. We produce hundreds of accounting students each year. We were just ranked number 3 by U.S. News and World Report from a graduate program perspective, and I say those rankings, we're the best. Number 3 doesn't do us justice, for sure. But, whenever I was head in that program, I really wanted us to think differently from a curricular perspective, because I saw the way that all of the world was changing and how industries were changing. And at that point, business analytics was the hot word, right? It's do you have those skills? And so we were trying to think very differently about how do we train the accountants of tomorrow. And we wanted to embed accountant analytics throughout our curriculum. And so I hired Robert Brunner, who now is in the Gies College of Business. He was here at the University of Illinois in the Department of Astronomy, and he has a PhD in astrophysics. And So as head of accountancy, I hired Robert as a full professor in accountancy. I still don't quite remember how I got that done or how I actually convinced the other full professors in accountancy, and I don't even remember how I navigated the P&T process, but I'm pretty sure we are the only accounting department anywhere in the world that has a full tenured faculty member with a PhD in astrophysics. I like Robert right from the beginning because he went to Purdue, I went to Indiana, Boilermaker versus Hoosier, like we have this like natural kind of competitive vibe going on, but he's been really amazing in transforming how at that time we thought about delivering accountancy education, and now he's an associate dean in the Gies College of Business and also the chief disruption officer, which that probably is the only individual that also has that title anyway on our campus. If you don't know Robert, his email handle is bigdog@illinois.edu. That says all you need to know about Robert. He's a really, really awesome guy. But that's just an example of really, I think, how I thought early on about innovation and thinking differently about how we delivered business education. The next thing I want to share just a little bit about, if some of you probably do know, maybe some of you don't, we have a portfolio of really high quality scaled graduate degrees and certificates in the Gies College of Business. And so if you go back to 2015, we served 0 online students. And then 2016, we launched a fully online Master's of Business and Administration, partnered with Coursera. And we really thought differently and disrupted the model for graduate business education. We offer a 72 credit hour MBA for under $23,000. Now we've gone from, in January 2016, we served 114 students in that program. Today we serve nearly 5,000 students across 160 countries in all 50 states. It really has just been a tremendous story of what happens when you develop high-quality programs that are accessible and flexible. And we were only able to do that through having an innovative mindset and embracing technology. Pre-pandemic, our innovative technology was Zoom. I mean, now, like, people kind of laugh whenever we say that, right? But no one was using Zoom, and people definitely didn't use Zoom to deliver education, but we use Zoom to, have a virtual classroom all around the world. So since 2016, we launched IMBA. We launched 2 additional degrees. When I was head of accountancy, I launched a fully online Master's of Science in Accountancy. And then during the pandemic, we launched a 3rd degree, an online Master's of Science in Management. And then subsequent to that, we really thought from an innovative perspective about how to develop and deliver a stackable portfolio of online offerings. And so you can start in a MOOC on the Coursera platform. That stacks into a single credit-bearing course, which stacks into a graduate certificate, which stacks into a degree. And so it really was being innovative and thinking about how do we deliver graduate business education in a different way. And what's so amazing about those programs is, they are more diverse than any other program that we have in the Gies College of Business, and I would say probably even more diverse than any other program that we have on this campus, and it's diverse in its broadest sense. It's diverse in lived experiences. Because we have individuals, we have farmers in our program, we have active duty military in our program, we have working moms who never thought that they would be able to either afford or have the flexibility to return and get an MBA from a Research One institution. And so what happens whenever you use technology and really innovation to break down barriers to education, it is unbelievable what you can do from an access perspective. And that's important to me because we're a land-grant institution at the University of Illinois, and I want to ensure that Gies lives out that land-grant institution. The last thing I'll share, and then I'll open it up for questions. Whenever I came into this role in August, one thing I wanted to ensure that Gies was at the center of the entrepreneurship ecosystem at the University of Illinois and in our state. And so there have been several new things that we've started. I named the inaugural Associate Dean of Entrepreneurship in January, Melissa Gravener. If you haven't had an opportunity to meet her, she is really, really amazing. And under her leadership, we've started a lot of new initiatives. With Granger, we're developing and we're going to launch a campus-wide entrepreneurship minor. Gies and Granger will be the core of that minor, but almost every other college across our campus is contributing courses. And so it really will be a way for us to expose all students at the University of Illinois to entrepreneurship education, which I think is just really, really awesome. We believe in making entrepreneurship accessible to all. You don't have to be a founder, right? There are a lot of benefits from just exposure to entrepreneurial concepts and an entrepreneurial mindset. This week, we have the COSAT New Venture Challenge going on, and the Gies College of Business is partnering with the Granger College of Engineering and the Illinois Carle College of Medicine in the COSAT New Venture Challenge. And so again, I think it's just a great example of how we're trying to come together and be a good partner. I think when we think about the excellence that we have across business, engineering, and medicine, like that sets the University of Illinois apart from every other institution anywhere in the world. And so if we can continue really to be synergistic and make investments together, I think we can do something really, really amazing. So those are just a few examples of how I think about technology and innovation and really how it's impacted what we do in the college and how I think about it from a leadership perspective. So I'll pause and stop and just see if there are any questions at all. Yeah?
What is a chief disruption officer?
Oh, Robert gave himself that title. So he has a portfolio, and we created so the idea was twofold. One, he's charged with thinking about things that are going to happen 5 to 10 years forward, so not about now. So yes, we talk about generative AI, but what we talk about most right now is humanoid robotics, because he thinks that is what is next. He actually created, maybe 36 months ago, the first digital avatar that we had in the Gies College of Business, and now 5 faculty, including me, we have our own digital avatars, which is really, really awesome. Like, my digital avatar looks just like me, talks like me, but can speak any language. And I can speak Mandarin with a southern accent. It's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So that's part of what he does. And then the other part of what he does is he oversees what we call the Disruption Lab, where we bring together Granger and Gies students to work on either founding projects or new ideas. So some of the projects we source from startups, and some will actually source from the Gies College of Business, and it's just to solve a problem that we're having, and they actually build out a prototype, whether it's a prototype of a new business model or a product. And so those are just a couple of things underneath his portfolio. Other questions? Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about, in your introduction, about work-life balance.
Oh, yeah.
And how balance doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, obviously you're a mom,
Yeah.
how did you integrate your career into your home life and vice versa? And were there any years where you had to accelerate or decelerate your career based on what was going on at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. I meant to talk about that. So, yeah, people say work-life balance, and when I think about balance, I always have like this vision of someone being like perfectly settled and calm and meditative, and my life never looks like that. And so I actually say it like it's a triage situation. And so then you imagine like an emergency room, and that is more like my life. And so I always think I triage well. And I think a couple of things that I've learned over time is, like, I can never be the best everything on any given day. And so on the days that I'm best in this role, that I'm the best dean, I am not the best mom. And there are some days when I feel like I'm really the best mom, and on those days, I'm not the best dean. And I just have to be okay with that. It's taken me a while to get there and not to feel guilty. And I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she tries to make me feel guilty every single time I prioritize something like over her. Every time I travel, right? It's like she's given it to me for sure. But I tell her that someday that I'm treating her to be a strong woman, and I'm leading by example. So I think part of it is just like accepting that and deciding, like, you know, in what days you need to be where and be your best. You know, I think if I think about over like this is probably not the healthiest way to deal with like my professional and my personal life, but I basically have 0 boundaries. And 0 boundaries doesn't work for a lot of people. Like, some people definitely need boundaries. For me though, it allows me then to be present within a given day at work, and then present for my kids too. So my son has a baseball game today at 4:30. I'm the announcer. I'll respond to emails right into it. In between announcing, I'll respond to texts. So I mean, that is a no boundary situation. But then it also allows me to, you know, still do what I need to do in this role, and then be present at his game. And so, but that doesn't work. It doesn't work for everyone. In terms of, if I think about have I ever taken a step back, I mean, I definitely think like I've had periods where I've slowed down a little bit, and then there have been periods when I've been all in. And it's probably around, different times whenever my family needs me. I think, I've been very, I guess, reflective and clear with myself. Like, I know what I value. Like, I value my family and I value my kids. And if it comes down to it, like, I'm going to choose them every single day. And so, but just knowing that and being true to those values, really, really, I think has helped me over time. But I don't think there's there's not a right way for anyone. But it just is kind of, what works for you and developing like those good habits over time. Yeah, Lori?
What is it like being a dean? You've been a dean
Oh.
for 9 months. What is the job? And
Oh my
what is it
gosh.
different than you thought it might have been?
That's a good question. So I've been here for 22 years. I was executive associate dean before. I had a lot of opportunity to understand from the prior dean, Jeff Brown, what it was like. So I think, at least all my other dean colleagues tell me that this year is like no other year they've ever experienced, even than COVID. So I'm like, well, that's good for me because, I mean, this is all I know. So if it can only get better from here, I'm in a pretty good spot. I think it's just, like I have no autonomy over my schedule. I think at all. And that's hard for me because I am a planner. That's how I get things done, right? That's how I triage well. And so not having control over my schedule, not being able to predict day to day, like what I have to attend to, and particularly in these times when every Friday at 6 p.m. there's another executive order that comes out that significantly affects the way that we do our business and that we care for our students at the university, like that is really, really hard. I didn't expect one thing I often joke about, so like we're building a new building, Weimer Hall. I knew that, like there is a big structure there, but I completely forgot that I was going to be the one responsible for that large capital project and taking it to completion. That actually has been, I know so many things about fire code and permanent versus temporary occupancy permits, and we have to do a health life safety test before that we actually get the permanent occupancy, and then we can't put up the wood panels with the donor signs, and we have an event on September 5th, and somehow I have to figure out how to get us to get that done, right? So that's the part of, that's just one example of, in the role as dean, right, you're responsible for the entire business, right? And we have a campus now of 3 different buildings, and I have to make decisions about maintenance, and am I going to proceed with an architecture project? And so I think there are just a lot of unexpected pieces. Unexpected from a good perspective, not that this was, I knew this was part of the job, so I mean, meeting with alums, raising philanthropic dollars is a huge part of my role as a dean. I am surprised how much I like it. Like, I absolutely love it. And for 2 reasons. One, I get to travel around, I meet amazing individuals whose lives were transformed by their education at the University of Illinois. And I hear that story again and again. So the first question I ask every time I sit down with an alum is, tell me your Illinois story. And a lot of times it's, I came from a small farm town. I was a first-generation college student. Illinois was the only place I could afford to go, but this has been my life since. And so it's so inspiring, and it's a good reminder in terms of like why we do what we do. I also am an extremely competitive person, and I love to raise money. I didn't know I was gonna like enjoy it so much. It's a game for good, right? I'm raising money so that we can offer scholarship dollars to our undergraduate students and provide access to education. I mean, I love that part of my job. I think other unexpected pieces, I think the only maybe other kind of surprising thing is I've been in this university for a long time. I've been in many different leadership roles. I know like all the people in my college, I know people across campus, but it's been a difficult shift from the role I was in now to the role I'm in, the executive associate dean role to the dean role, just in terms of people aren't quite sure how to interact with me. And even people that had reported to me before and I built friendships with, like all of a sudden, like, well, Brooke's the dean. And I'm like, but it's still just me. But it does, like the position comes with that, right? And so that's something I think that I'm still really settling into and figuring how to manage. But overall, it's good. I love the job. I get up every day and I absolutely love what I do. And I think very few people probably can say that. And so I feel really lucky. Yeah?
So you talked about how your students with female students looked up to you
Yeah.
and you were really excited
Yeah.
about it. I want to know if there's anything, if there's things that the Gies College of Business is doing specifically for female students, for women in this industry, how they're perceived. So what are the resources?
Yeah, so we try to do a lot of different things. And so if we think about like in finance, we started a Women in Finance Academy. In our Office of Entrepreneurship, iVenture, we really try to focus when we build out those cohorts to try to bring in women founders. And so in everything we do, when we think about, we have academies like Investment Banking Academy and Investment Management Academy, and we really try to drive to bring women into those academies because we know that they're underrepresented in those fields, right, broadly. And so I think we're very purposeful in terms of providing not just opportunities for women, but really trying to, ensure that there's an awareness in terms of what the different opportunities are and that everyone can be successful. I go and speak to the different RSO student organizations. Like anytime I have an opportunity to go and share what it's like to be, a woman in a field where that's particularly male dominated, and the questions a lot of times are, well, if I pursue this path, can I get married? Can I have kids? Like, can I do these things? And so I just try to share, from a very personal and vulnerable spot about what the challenges are, but that those opportunities do exist. And I think just broadly, if you walk into the business school in DeBiff, on big letters, it's like seen, heard, valued. And that is what we talk about all the time. And it really is, we try to create a place where, again, everyone shows up and can be their authentic self, and that the possibilities really are endless for any single student that walks into that door. And so it really is something that we're trying to, build from a culture perspective.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurship experience and story?
Oh, well, I'm not an entrepreneur. I guess maybe I'm an entrepreneur. I call myself an entrepreneur. I do innovate. Within the College of Business. I think, I have a real passion for just an entrepreneurial mindset. So I think that's probably what I've exhibited most over my academic career. Is just really having that entrepreneurial mindset, always thinking about how can we do things differently? Like every single opportunity that we get. Like we're faced with a situation, right, where this is I think one of the hardest times on this campus for international students. We have international students in the Gies College of Business who their visas are being revoked, both at the graduate and the undergraduate level. Some of them are current students. They're in programs that are 3-year programs, and then we have several, thousands of students who have applied and have been admitted to actually show up on our campus in the fall. And so this is just an example of this entrepreneurial mindset. Like we're coming together. The other thing in Gies, we have more expertise and experience in delivering high quality online education than anyone in the world. And so we're coming together as a group and thinking about how can we be innovative, how can we be entrepreneurial, and really could we put together a program where we can allow all the students that are affected, that are losing visas or will return home in the summer and won't be able to come back so that they can continue their experience with the University of Illinois in a very high quality, engaging way. So not just returning to where we were in the beginning of COVID, but can we do something really different? And so I think that probably is just a good example of how I take that entrepreneurial mindset and try to live that out in every single decision that we make, or in every single time we're faced with a challenge. Like how can we approach it in a way that that is really innovative.
You had spoken earlier about how in the early days of your career you felt pressured to assimilate to the culture around you.
Sure.
And it's cool to see you as a dean. One of the things I always think about is like Brooke Elliott is
Yeah.
sneakerhead.
Yeah, that's right.
So can you tell us how you found the courage to be your authentic self despite rigid expectations of the culture around you?
That's a great question. I think it took a long time, and it took me being a tenured faculty member, which, you can't have confidence when you're a tenured faculty member, right? Because it's the only profession in the world where you have this indefinite lifetime contract, and even that's what it says on my NOA, right? It's the weirdest thing, and it's still an odd. I feel like it's kind of an odd relic, but that probably is what gave me the confidence to do it, right? Because I was in a place, I think, from a reputation perspective, where I built a reputation. I had established myself as a leader. And there was like no downside risk to changing my behavior and really showing up as my authentic self. I think I also had a few really strong mentors. Two of them were actually men, which one is in the college now, one is outside of the college but was at the university previously. I think that also, like having that support throughout my academic career, and honestly having, for me, I think over time that gave me a tremendous amount of confidence. And then I think I came to a realization that, look, I'm my best self if I'm me. And so, it's why I wear, I just wear sneakers. That's what I like to wear, no matter what. I show up in an event, even if it's a black tie event, I still just rock the tux and the sneakers every time. And I'm like, if they're gonna ask me to leave, that's fine. Like, it's not a place for me then, right? If I can't show up and be who I am. So it's taken, but it didn't come quick, right? And I think it took me surrounding myself with individuals who also believed in me that allowed me to get to this spot.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe one more question?
One more?
Yeah.
So it's great that there's more support for women in the program. How are you seeing it turn out when they get out into the world? Are they getting kind of equal pay, or are they having career success as well?
I mean, in business, in like starting roles, yes. And so we don't see, we have great placement in the business school. We place women in investment banking and investment management and accounting roles, and their starting salaries don't differ between men and women. I still do see, though, that there are less women that advance, right, up through no matter what industry they're going in. And sometimes I think it's that the support just isn't there for women if they do choose to have a family, right, or pursue other passions in the way that it is for people of the opposite sex. And so we still see the same career path is not there, and then you also observe later a salary difference. There are still very few women CEOs if you look at the Fortune 500, and if you do look at the salaries of the women CEOs on average, they're significantly lower. I had this, again, maybe a few years ago, I had this conversation with my daughter. I don't remember how it came up, and it's always like kids are interesting because she never had conceived of the fact that a woman would make less than a man for doing the same job, and it had come up, and she was appalled. It was such an impactful moment for me, just because from her, she had never experienced anything different, right? And so I still think there is a lot of work to do, in business broadly. I think the change that we can make is continue to really bring women into the business school, to support women, and to ensure that we're continuing to provide them support, even as they become our alums. That's something that we're really working on in Gies too, to providing that continual support even after you leave Gies, so that you can be empowered to continue to really just be your best self. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Elliott, I hope all of you leave this room today as inspired as I know I will, and want to run through a wall maybe and scream ILL. So I think we'll conclude with a little bit of ILL. So how about you all ILL? ILL. Thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.